The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 42nd floor, each drop a reminder that even Manhattan's elite couldn't control everything. Richard Blackwood loosened his Italian silk tie and stared at the spreadsheet glowing on his monitor, the numbers blurring together like a financial death sentence written in red ink. "Mr. Blackwood?" Sophia Martinez appeared in his doorway, her voice cutting through the storm's symphony. At 28, she possessed the kind of understated beauty that made men forget their own names. Honey-colored skin, dark eyes that seemed to hold secrets, and a figure that her conservative business attire couldn't quite hide. "I brought the Patterson contracts you requested." Richard glanced up, grateful for any distraction from the catastrophe sprawling across his screen. "Thank you, Sophia. What time is it?" "Nearly midnight." She stepped into his office, closing the door behind her with deliberate precision. "The cleaning crew left an hour ago. It's just us." Just us. The words hung in the air like an invitation, though Richard couldn't be sure if he was imagining the subtle emphasis. In the 6 months since Sophia had joined Blackwood Industries as his executive assistant, she'd proven herself invaluable, brilliant, efficient, and somehow always anticipating his needs before he voiced them. "You should go home," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Catherine's probably wondering where I am." Sophia moved closer, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "Mrs. Blackwood called earlier. She's at her sister's in Connecticut for the weekend, remember? Some charity event." Richard had forgotten. These days, he forgot many things about Catherine, about their 20-year marriage, about the life they'd built together. Everything seemed secondary to the mounting crisis threatening to destroy his empire. "You look exhausted," Sophia observed, setting the contracts on his desk. Her fingers brushed his hand as she did, the contact lasting a heartbeat longer than necessary. "When's the last time you slept?" "Sleep's a luxury I can't afford." Richard gestured at his computer screen. "We're hemorrhaging money, Sophia. The Singapore deal fell through, the investors are getting nervous, and if we don't find a solution soon—" "You'll find a way," she said with quiet confidence. "You always do." Her faith in him was intoxicating, especially when his own was crumbling. Richard studied her face in the dim light cast by his desk lamp, noticing how the shadows accentuated her cheekbones, how her lips curved in an almost imperceptible smile. "You know," Sophia said, moving around his desk with fluid grace, "stress can cloud judgment. Sometimes a clear head requires relaxation." She was behind him now, her hands settling on his shoulders with gentle pressure. Richard knew he should pull away, should maintain the professional boundary that had somehow become increasingly blurred over the past few weeks. Instead, he found himself leaning into her touch. "Sophia." "Shh." Her fingers worked at the knots in his shoulders, and he felt some of the tension begin to ebb. "Just let me help you." The massage was innocent enough, until her lips brushed the shell of his ear, sending an electric current through his entire body. "You don't have to carry this burden alone, Richard." He turned in his chair, suddenly aware of how close she was, how her perfume mingled with the scent of rain and coffee that permeated his office. "We shouldn't what?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Shouldn't acknowledge what's been building between us for months." Before he could respond, her lips were on his, soft and insistent. 20 years of marriage, 20 years of fidelity, crumbled in an instant. Richard pulled her closer, his hands tangling in her dark hair as thunder rolled across the Manhattan skyline. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Sophia smiled, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I should go," she said, straightening her blouse with practiced efficiency. "But Richard, whatever financial troubles you're facing, we can work through them together. I have some ideas that might help." As she gathered her purse and headed for the door, Richard called after her. "Sophia, how did you know about the financial troubles? I haven't discussed the details with anyone." She paused, her hand on the door handle. "You talk in your sleep during those afternoon naps in your office." "I've been taking notes." Her smile returned, warmer this time. "I told you. I'm here to help with everything." The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving Richard alone with the storm and a growing sense of unease. He turned back to his computer, but instead of spreadsheets, he found himself staring at a news article someone had bookmarked. Blackwood Industries stock reaches all-time high, despite market volatility. The timestamp showed it was from 3 months ago, back when the public still believed in his success, when his company was still solvent. Richard scrolled through his files, searching for the current financial reports he'd been agonizing over all evening. They were gone. Every document, every spreadsheet, every piece of evidence of his company's impending collapse had vanished from his computer. In their place was a single folder labeled "For Your Eyes Only," containing a note in Sophia's handwriting. "Some secrets are too dangerous to leave lying around. We'll discuss your real situation tomorrow. Trust me, I know exactly how broke you are. S." Richard's blood turned to ice. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside his office, a different kind of tempest was beginning to brew. As he reached for his phone to call Catherine, a troubling thought occurred to him. His wife had been asking an unusual number of questions about his work lately. Questions that seemed far too sophisticated for someone who'd never shown interest in business before. He dialed her number, but it went straight to voicemail. Catherine's voice, crisp and professional, filled the silence. "You've reached Catherine Blackwood. I'm currently unavailable, but your call is important to me. Please leave a detailed message. Your call is important to me." Such a strange phrase for a personal voicemail. Almost legal. Richard set down the phone and stared out at the storm-lashed city below. In the space of one evening, his world had shifted on its axis. His secretary knew secrets that could destroy him. His wife was unreachable, and his company was built on a foundation of lies that were about to crumble. But perhaps the most unsettling realization of all was this. For the first time in months, he felt truly alive, and that terrified him more than bankruptcy ever could. The Blackwood Industries boardroom had witnessed countless million-dollar deals, but never anything quite like this. Sophia Martinez sat at the polished mahogany table, her laptop open, fingers dancing across the keyboard with surgical precision. Across from her, Richard paced like a caged animal, his usual composure fractured. "You deleted my files," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "You violated my privacy, my trust." "I saved your life," Sophia interrupted, not looking up from her screen. "Those files contained evidence that would have sent you to prison for securities fraud. Lucky for you, I'm not interested in seeing you behind bars." Richard stopped pacing. "What do you want?" Now she looked up, her dark eyes calculating. "I want to help you survive this. But first, you need to understand how deep this goes." She turned her laptop around, showing him a complex web of financial transactions. "Your CFO, Marcus Chen, has been systematically embezzling funds for 2 years. He's the reason your company is broke." "That's impossible. Marcus is my best friend. He's been with me since college, I know." Sophia's voice was patient, almost pitying. "Which is why he knew exactly how to manipulate your trust. Look at these transfers." She pointed to a series of transactions. "Every time you signed off on a major investment, Marcus skimmed 30% into offshore accounts. He's been building his own empire while yours crumbles." Richard's legs gave out, and he sank into a chair. "Even if that's true, why would you help me? What's in it for you?" Sophia closed her laptop and leaned back, studying him. "Let's just say I have my own reasons for wanting Marcus Chen destroyed." 40 blocks away, in the marble and gold lobby of the Plaza Hotel, Catherine Blackwood sat across from Marcus Chen in a secluded corner booth. She looked nothing like the socialite wife who'd kissed Richard goodbye that morning. Gone were the designer dresses and pearl necklaces. Instead, she wore a sharp black suit that screamed professional competence, and her usually soft demeanor had been replaced by something harder, more focused. "He took the bait," Marcus said, sipping his espresso. Your husband is completely infatuated with his new secretary. Catherine's smile was cold. Sofia Martinez is good at her job. I should know. I'm the one who hired her. Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. You what? Oh, Marcus, did you really think I was just some decorative wife, content to plan charity galas while my husband's empire collapsed? Catherine pulled out a tablet, showing him surveillance footage from Richard's office. I've been watching Richard's every move for months. I know about the financial troubles, the desperate late-night calls to investors, the way he's been slowly liquidating our personal assets to keep the company afloat. Catherine, I can explain. No need. She held up a hand. I've known about your embezzlement for 6 months. What I couldn't figure out was why you were stealing from a company that was already failing. Then I realized you weren't just stealing money, you were stealing time. Marcus's face went pale. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You needed Richard distracted while you transferred the stolen funds to untraceable accounts. But here's what you didn't count on. I'm not just Richard's wife. I'm Catherine Blackwood, former federal prosecutor, and I've been building a case against you piece by piece. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. 20 years prosecuting white-collar crime doesn't just disappear because you get married, Marcus. It goes dormant, and you just woke it up. Back at Blackwood Industries, Sophia was putting the finishing touches on her presentation when Richard's phone buzzed. A text from Catherine. Working late again. Don't wait up. She's very understanding, Sophia observed, reading over his shoulder. Most wives would be furious about their husbands spending so much time at the office. Richard frowned. Catherine's always been supportive of my work. Supportive or distracted? Sophia moved closer, her hand resting on his arm. Richard, there's something else you need to know. I've been monitoring your personal communications. You've been what? It's for your own protection, she said quickly. Your wife has been making some interesting phone calls lately. Calls to the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. The blood drained from Richard's face. That's impossible. Catherine doesn't know anything about the missing money? About the forged documents? About the fact that your company's been technically bankrupt for 8 months? Sophia's voice was gentle but relentless. She knows, Richard. She's known for a long time. Richard slumped in his chair, the weight of betrayal crushing down on him. My wife, my best friend, everyone I trusted has been lying to me. Not everyone, Sophia said softly. She knelt beside his chair, taking his hands in hers. I'm here. I'm on your side. Why? He whispered. Why would you risk everything for me? Sophia's eyes softened, and for a moment, her carefully constructed facade slipped. Because I know what it's like to be betrayed by someone you love. My father built a company from nothing, trusted the wrong people, and lost everything. I watched him die of a heart attack at 52, broken and alone. I swore I'd never let that happen to someone else if I could prevent it. She stood, moving to the window that overlooked the city. But there's more, Richard. Something I haven't told you about Marcus and your wife. What? They've been meeting. Regular lunches at the plaza, private conversations, encrypted messages. She turned back to him, her expression grave. I think they're working together. Richard's world tilted further off its axis. Working together how? I'm not sure yet, but I intend to find out. Sophia returned to her laptop, pulling up a new file. Tomorrow, Marcus is presenting the quarterly reports to the board. I've prepared 2 versions, the real numbers that show the company's true financial state, and a doctored version that hides the embezzlement. Why would you help me cover it up? Because, Sophia said, her smile returning with predatory intensity. Sometimes the best way to catch a thief is to let them think they've gotten away with it. Marcus expects you to present the fake numbers to save face, but what if instead you present the real ones? Richard stared at her, beginning to understand. He'd be exposed in front of the entire board, along with whoever's been helping him from the inside. Sophia's fingers flew across the keyboard. Your wife's law background makes her the perfect accomplice. She'd know exactly how to structure the theft to minimize legal exposure. But if I expose Marcus tomorrow, the company will collapse. The stock will crash. Investors will flee. The company's already dead, Richard. Has been for months. The question is whether you're going to go down with it or whether you're going to take control of your own fate. As if summoned by their conversation, Richard's phone rang. Catherine's name appeared on the screen. "Answer it," Sophia whispered, "but put it on speaker." Richard hesitated, then accepted the call. "Hello? Darling, I'm so sorry to call so late." Catherine's voice filled the office, warm and familiar. "I'm going to stay in Connecticut another day. Margaret's charity event ran long and I'm exhausted." "Of course," Richard said, his voice carefully neutral. "Take all the time you need. How's work? You sound stressed." "The usual challenges. Nothing I can't handle." "I'm sure you can't. You always find a way." A pause. "Richard, I love you. Whatever happens, remember that." The line went dead. Richard stared at the phone, Catherine's words echoing in his mind. "Whatever happens, she knows," he said quietly. "She knows what's coming." Sophia nodded grimly. "The question is, what's she planning to do about it?" Outside, the storm from the night before had passed, leaving behind a deceptively clear sky. But inside the gleaming tower of Blackwood Industries, the real tempest was just beginning to build. Richard looked at Sophia, this woman who'd appeared in his life like a guardian angel with a hidden agenda, and realized that tomorrow's board meeting would determine not just the fate of his company, but the future of everyone he'd ever trusted. "So," he said, straightening his tie with newfound resolve, "what's our next move?" Sophia's smile was sharp as a blade. "We spring the trap, and we see who's really been pulling the strings." But as she turned back to her laptop, Richard caught a glimpse of something on her screen. A file labeled Exit Strategy, with his name at the top. His blood chilled as he realized that perhaps, in a world where everyone was playing a game, he still didn't know who the real players were, or what they ultimately wanted with him. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m., but at 7:30, Sophia Martinez found herself in an unexpected location, the intimate dining room of Le Bernardin, sitting across from Catherine Blackwood. The restaurant wouldn't open for hours, yet somehow Catherine had arranged for them to meet there, alone. "You're wondering how I got us in here," Catherine said, cutting into her perfectly prepared eggs Benedict. "The owner, Henri, owes me a favor from my prosecutor days. I helped his son with a legal matter." Sophia maintained her composure, though her mind was racing. She'd agreed to this meeting out of curiosity, but now she was beginning to suspect she'd walked into something far more dangerous than a confrontation with a jealous wife. "Mrs. Blackwood, Catherine, please. We're about to be very honest with each other." Catherine's smile was warm, but her eyes were calculating. "I know you've been sleeping with my husband." Sophia tensed, ready to defend herself, but Catherine held up a hand. "I also know you've been manipulating him, feeding him information about Marcus, positioning yourself as his savior." Catherine took a sip of her coffee. "What I'm curious about is why you haven't asked the obvious question. Which is? If I'm a former federal prosecutor who's been building a case against Marcus for months, why haven't I already arrested him?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Sophia felt the first stirrings of unease as she realized she'd been so focused on Richard's vulnerabilities that she'd overlooked Catherine's true capabilities. "I assume you're waiting for more evidence," Sophia said carefully. Catherine laughed, a sound that was both musical and chilling. "Oh, my dear, I have enough evidence to put Marcus away for 20 years. Bank records, forged documents, recorded conversations, Everything the FBI would need for a conviction. Then why? Because Marcus Chen isn't the endgame. He's just a useful idiot. Catherine leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. The real question is, who's been feeding him information about Richard's movements, his passwords, his private financial details? Who's been helping him stay one step ahead of detection? Sophia's blood turned to ice as the implications hit her. You think there's someone else involved? I don't think, dear. I know. Catherine pulled out her phone, showing Sophia a series of surveillance photos. These were taken over the past 3 months. Marcus meeting with various contacts, but look at the timestamps. Sophia studied the images, her trained eye picking up the pattern immediately. He's meeting with someone before each major theft. Someone who knows Richard's schedule, his habits, his weaknesses. Catherine's smile was predatory now. Someone with intimate access to his private life. The accusation hit Sophia like a physical blow. You think I'm working with Marcus? I thought so, until last night. Catherine showed her another photo, this one of Sophia leaving the Blackwood Industries building at 2 a.m. You stayed 3 hours after Richard left, long enough to plant evidence, delete files, or gather intelligence. I was protecting him. From what? From whom? Catherine's voice was razor-sharp now. Here's what I think happened. Someone recruited you to get close to Richard. Someone who knew about Marcus's embezzlement and wanted to use it as cover for something bigger. Sophia's mind was spinning. Everything she thought she knew about the situation was crumbling. That's impossible. I've been investigating Marcus on my own, with remarkably sophisticated tools for a secretary. Catherine pulled out a tablet, showing her detailed financial analysis software. This is FBI-grade forensic accounting software. Not exactly standard office equipment. The trap was closing around her, and Sophia realized she'd been outmaneuvered by someone she'd underestimated. What do you want? I want to know who sent you. Catherine's facade of politeness finally dropped. I want to know who's really behind this. Sophia was quiet for a long moment, weighing her options. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, harder, more professional. You're right. I'm not just Richard's secretary. I know. The question is, are you FBI, CIA, or something else entirely? FBI Financial Crimes Unit, Sophia admitted. I've been undercover for 8 months, investigating what we thought was a simple embezzlement case. Catherine's eyes lit up with interest. Thought was, we discovered the embezzlement, but the amounts were too small, too scattered. It felt like a distraction from something bigger. Sophia leaned back, reassessing the woman across from her. Then I realized the real crime isn't what Marcus was stealing. It's what he was covering up. Which is, your husband's company has been laundering money for a human trafficking ring. Marcus wasn't embezzling. He was skimming profits from dirty money that was being cleaned through Blackwood Industries. Catherine's composure cracked for the first time. That's impossible. Richard would never. Richard doesn't know. The operation was run entirely through shell companies that Marcus controlled. Your husband was the perfect front. Respected, successful, completely oblivious to what was happening in his own company. But you said someone was feeding Marcus information. There is. Someone who's been protecting the trafficking operation, making sure Marcus could continue his work without detection. Sophia pulled out her own phone, showing Catherine a series of encrypted messages. We intercepted these communications. Someone with high-level access has been warning the traffickers about potential investigations. Catherine studied the messages, her prosecutor's mind working quickly. The source is inside law enforcement. More than that. The source knew about my undercover operation from the beginning. They knew the FBI was investigating Blackwood Industries. Sophia's voice was grim. Someone's been playing all of us. Who? We don't know yet. But whoever it is, they're about to make their move. The trafficking ring is planning to shut down the operation and disappear. That's why Marcus has been escalating the embezzlement. It's not theft, it's extraction. He's pulling out the last of the dirty money before they close up shop. Catherine was silent for a long moment, processing this information. The board meeting this morning is a trap, but not the kind you think. Sophia's expression was urgent now. If Richard presents those real financial documents, it won't just expose Marcus. It'll expose the entire money laundering operation. The traffickers will realize their cover is blown, and they'll eliminate everyone who could testify against them. Including Richard. Including all of us. Catherine stood abruptly, pacing to the window. We have to stop the meeting. We can't. If we abort now, they'll know we're onto them. They'll disappear, and we'll never catch them. Sophia joined her at the window. But there's another option. Which is? We work together. You know Richard better than anyone. I have the FBI resources. Together we can turn this trap around on them. Catherine studied her reflection in the window, seeing not the socialite wife she'd been pretending to be, but the prosecutor she'd never really stopped being. What do you need me to do? Help me identify the source. Someone's been feeding information to the traffickers. Someone who knew about my operation from the start. Sophia pulled out a secure tablet. I'm going to show you classified FBI communications. If you're really on our side, you'll help me find the leak. As Catherine scrolled through the documents, her face grew pale. Oh my God. What? The source. I know who it is. Catherine's voice was barely a whisper. But Richard's walking into that boardroom in 2 hours, and if we don't stop him, he's going to get himself killed. Who is it, Catherine? Catherine looked up from the tablet, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. It's someone who's been in Richard's inner circle for 20 years. Someone who's been to our house for dinner, who knows our routines, our security codes, our most intimate secrets. Marcus? No. Someone even closer. Catherine's voice was hollow. Someone who's been playing the long game, waiting for the perfect moment to cash in. Before Sophia could respond, Catherine's phone buzzed with a text message. She read it, and her face went white. What is it? It's from Richard. The board meeting has been moved up. It's starting in 30 minutes. Catherine grabbed her purse, her movements sharp and urgent. We're out of time. Catherine, who is the source? But Catherine was already heading for the door, leaving Sophia with a chilling parting shot. Someone who's been manipulating this entire situation from the beginning. Someone who wanted Richard to find out about the affair, about the embezzlement, about everything. As the door closed behind Catherine, Sophia realized that in a game where everyone was playing multiple sides, she'd just learned that the most dangerous player of all was someone who'd been hiding in plain sight. And in 28 minutes, Richard Blackwood would walk into a boardroom where his life hung in the balance, completely unaware that the person he trusted most was about to betray him in the most unthinkable way possible. The Blackwood Industries boardroom had never felt more like a tomb. Richard sat at the head of the polished table, surrounded by 12 board members who represented billions in combined wealth, all waiting for him to explain why their golden goose had stopped laying eggs. The presentation remote felt slick in his sweaty palm as he stared at the screen showing his company's fabricated financial health. Before we begin, Richard said, his voice steadier than he felt, I want to address some irregularities that have come to light. Marcus Chen, seated to his right, tensed almost imperceptibly. Richard, perhaps we should discuss this privately first. No. Richard's voice cut through the room like a blade. The board deserves to know the truth. He clicked to the next slide, revealing the real financial documents that Sophia had prepared. Gasps echoed around the room as the board members saw the devastating numbers. The company wasn't just struggling, it was hemorrhaging money at an alarming rate. What you're seeing, Richard continued, is evidence of systematic embezzlement spanning 2 years. Someone with access to our most sensitive financial systems has been stealing from this company. Board member Elizabeth Hartwell leaned forward. How much? $47 million. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Marcus stood abruptly. "Richard, you can't be serious. These numbers are real." Richard clicked to the next slide, showing detailed transaction records. The money was funneled through shell companies, hidden in legitimate business expenses, and transferred to offshore accounts. Marcus's face had gone pale, but his voice remained steady. "This is a mistake. Someone's clearly doctored these records to..." "To what, Marcus?" Richard's eyes were hard as steel. "To frame you? These transactions all required your electronic signature. Anyone could have accessed my credentials. Not anyone." Richard clicked again, revealing security footage. "Only someone who knew the specific times when our security systems were being updated. Someone who had access to our internal schedules." The footage showed Marcus entering the building at 3 a.m. on multiple occasions, using his keycard to access the financial systems during maintenance windows when the activity wouldn't be logged in the primary security database. Marcus was trapped, and he knew it. But instead of the defeated resignation Richard expected, his old friend began to laugh, a cold, bitter sound that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" Marcus said, his composure finally cracking. "You think you figured it all out. I think you've betrayed 20 years of friendship for money." "Money?" Marcus laughed again. "Richard, you still don't understand. This was never about money." Before Richard could respond, the boardroom doors burst open. Sophia rushed in, her face flushed with panic. "Richard, don't..." She stopped mid-sentence as she saw the presentation on the screen. Her eyes widened in horror. "You already showed them." "Showed them what?" Richard was confused by her reaction. "The real documents, the evidence of the money laundering." Sophia's voice was urgent. "Richard, you've just signed all of our death warrants." The board members looked confused, but Marcus was smiling now, a predator's smile that Richard had never seen before. "Too late," Marcus said, pulling out his phone. "The cleanup crew is already on their way." "What cleanup crew?" Richard demanded. Sophia stepped forward, her hand moving to her jacket. "Richard, I need you to stay calm. My name is Agent Sophia Martinez, FBI Financial Crimes Unit. Your company has been used as a front for a human trafficking operation." The revelation hit the room like a bomb. Board members began talking at once, their voices rising in panic and confusion. "That's impossible," Richard said. "I would have known." "You weren't supposed to know," Marcus interrupted. "You were the perfect cover, respected businessman, clean record, completely oblivious to what was happening in your own company." "The money you thought I was stealing?" Marcus continued, his voice gaining confidence. "It was profits from the trafficking operation. Money that needed to be cleaned through legitimate businesses before it could be used." Richard felt sick. Human trafficking. Young women from Eastern Europe mostly. Very lucrative market. Marcus checked his phone again. "And now, thanks to your little presentation, everyone in this room knows about it." "Which is why," said a new voice from the doorway, "you all need to disappear." Richard turned to see Catherine entering the boardroom, but she wasn't alone. 3 men in dark suits followed her, their hands inside their jackets, in a way that suggested they were armed. "Catherine?" Richard's voice was bewildered. "What are you doing here?" "I'm sorry, darling," Catherine said, her voice genuinely regretful. "But you've stumbled into something much bigger than you can handle." Sophia drew her weapon, but the men were faster. "FBI, nobody move." "Agent Martinez," Catherine said calmly, "you're outnumbered. Please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be." "Catherine," Richard said, his world crumbling around him. "You're working with Marcus." "I'm working with the people Marcus works for." Catherine moved to stand beside Marcus, her transformation from devoted wife to cold professional complete. "The people who've been running this operation for 5 years." "You're the inside source," Sophia said, her weapon still trained on the armed men. "You've been feeding information to the traffickers." I've been protecting a very lucrative business arrangement, Catherine corrected. Did you really think the FBI could infiltrate this operation without us knowing? We've been watching you since the day you applied for the job as Richard's secretary. The pieces were falling into place in Richard's mind, each revelation more devastating than the last. You hired her. You wanted me to find out about the affair. I needed you distracted while we prepared for the final extraction, Catherine admitted. The operation was becoming too risky. Too many agencies getting close. It was time to shut it down and disappear. But you needed Richard to expose Marcus first, Sophia said, understanding dawning in her eyes. To make it look like simple embezzlement while you cleaned out the real money. Very good, Agent Martinez. Marcus would be the fall guy, Richard would be the victim, and I would be the grieving widow who inherited everything. Catherine's smile was cold. A very tidy solution. Except I'm not dead yet, Richard said, finding his voice again. Not yet, Catherine agreed, but I'm afraid that's about to change. Marcus pulled out his own weapon, pointing it at Richard. I really am sorry, old friend, but you should have minded your own business. Wait, Sophia said, her mind racing. There's something you don't know, something that changes everything. What? Catherine demanded. The FBI didn't just send me. This is a joint operation with Interpol, the DEA, and ICE. We've been tracking this trafficking ring for 3 years. Sophia's voice was steady, despite the guns pointed at her. Every transaction, every movement, every communication has been monitored. You're lying, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Then why haven't you been able to reach your contacts in Romania today? Why did 3 of your safe houses go dark last night? Sophia's smile was triumphant. Because this meeting isn't just Richard's trap. It's yours. As if on cue, the lights in the boardroom flickered and went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting eerie red shadows across the room. Building's in lockdown, Sophia announced. Nobody in, nobody out. In the confusion, Richard heard the sound of gunfire from the hallway, followed by shouting. The cleanup crew that Marcus had called wasn't coming to help. They were walking into a trap. It's over, Catherine, Sophia said. Surrender now, and maybe we can work out a deal. But Catherine wasn't finished. You think you've won? You have no idea how deep this goes. The trafficking ring is just one part of a much larger operation. People in government, law enforcement, business, we're everywhere. Which is why, said a familiar voice from the doorway, we needed to flush out all the players. Richard turned to see Detective Ray Harrison from the NYPD, but he was accompanied by federal agents in tactical gear. The man Richard had known for years as Catherine's contact in law enforcement was apparently something else entirely. Agent Harrison, DEA Task Force, the man announced. We've been tracking this operation for 3 years, waiting for the right moment to take down the entire network. Ray? Catherine's composure finally cracked. You're undercover, just like Agent Martinez. Harrison's smile was grim. Did you really think we'd let a trafficking ring operate in our backyard without infiltrating it at every level? As federal agents flooded the room, securing the weapons and placing Marcus and Catherine under arrest, Richard found himself standing in the ruins of his life, surrounded by strangers who had been playing roles in a drama he never knew existed. What happens now? He asked Sophia. Now, she said, holstering her weapon. We make sure you survive long enough to testify. Because Catherine was right about one thing. This network has people everywhere, and they're not going to be happy that their operation just went public. As Catherine was led away in handcuffs, she turned back to Richard one last time. You have no idea what you've started, she said. They'll never stop hunting you. Then, Richard said, his voice harder than it had ever been, we'll make sure we're ready for them. But as he watched his wife disappear into federal custody, Richard couldn't shake the feeling that the real game was just beginning. And in that game, the only way to survive was to become someone he'd never imagined he could be. Someone who was prepared to do the unthinkable. The federal safe house in upstate New York felt more like a prison than protection. Richard stared out the bulletproof windows at the autumn landscape, watching leaves fall like his former life, piece by piece, until nothing remained of what he'd once known. Agent Harrison sat across from him at the kitchen table, manila folders spread between them like a paper graveyard. "The network is bigger than we thought," Harrison said, sliding a new photograph across the table. Catherine wasn't exaggerating. "We've identified cells in 12 countries, with operations spanning everything from human trafficking to arms dealing to political corruption." Richard studied the photo, a meeting of well-dressed individuals in what looked like a European mansion. "And they all know about me now. They know you're the key witness who can connect Marcus to the money laundering operation. Without your testimony, we can't prove the trafficking profits were cleaned through legitimate businesses." Harrison's expression was grim. "Which makes you the most wanted man in the criminal underworld." "How wanted?" $50 million bounty wanted." Richard's coffee cup rattled against the saucer as he set it down. $50 million. They're not taking any chances. Every mercenary, assassin, and desperate criminal in the world is looking for you right now. Harrison pulled out another folder. "We've already intercepted 3 separate teams trying to locate this safe house. So what are my options? Witness protection? New identity? Traditional witness protection won't work. These people have resources that rival small governments. They'll find you eventually." Harrison opened the final folder, revealing what looked like death certificates. "Which is why we're proposing something unprecedented." Richard's blood chilled as he saw his own name on the top document. "You want to fake my death. Not just yours. All 3 of you." Harrison spread out 3 death certificates: Richard Blackwood, Catherine Blackwood, and Sophia Martinez. "It's the only way to make them stop hunting you. Catherine's in federal custody. Why would... Because she's agreed to cooperate fully in exchange for a reduced sentence. Her insider knowledge of the network is invaluable." Harrison's voice was carefully neutral. "And because, despite everything, she still loves you." Richard laughed bitterly. "She tried to have me killed. She tried to protect you the only way she knew how. Catherine's been undercover in this organization for 2 years, Richard. She volunteered for the assignment after her sister disappeared in Eastern Europe." The revelation hit Richard like a physical blow. "Margaret? Catherine's sister Margaret?" "Was taken by the trafficking ring 3 years ago. The FBI approached Catherine because of her prosecutorial background and her access to your company. She was supposed to gather intelligence, not fall so deep into the organization that she became one of them. But she did. She did. And now she's the only person who can help us take down the entire network." Harrison leaned forward. "But she won't testify unless she knows you're safe. And you won't be safe unless the world believes you're dead." Before Richard could respond, the safe house door opened. Sophia entered, but she looked different, harder, more focused. Gone was any trace of the secretary who'd seduced him in his office. "The extraction team is in position," she announced. "We have a 12-hour window before they realize what we're doing." "Extraction team?" Richard asked. "Special ops. They're going to stage your death in a very public, very convincing way." Sophia sat down, her expression serious. "Richard, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. The operation we're proposing has never been attempted on this scale." "What operation?" "We're going to fake a terrorist attack on the courthouse where you're supposed to testify tomorrow. The explosion will be real. The casualties will be real. But you, Catherine, and I will be extracted seconds before the blast." Richard stared at her. "You're talking about killing innocent people." "No," Harrison interjected. "We're talking about evacuating innocent people while making it look like they died. The terrorist attack will be blamed on the criminal network, which will make them think they succeeded while simultaneously turning every intelligence agency in the world against them." "It's ingenious," Sophia added. "They'll stop hunting us because they'll think we're dead. and we'll be free to work from the shadows to bring down their entire operation. Work from the shadows how? New identities, new lives, but the same mission. Sophia's eyes were intense. Catherine knows where all the bodies are buried. You know how the money flows. I know how to coordinate federal resources. Together we can systematically dismantle everything they've built. And if I refuse? Then you'll be dead within a week, Harrison said bluntly. And the network will continue operating, destroying thousands of lives every year. Richard was quiet for a long moment, processing the magnitude of what they were proposing. I'd never see my old life again. My friends, my colleagues, my identity. All of it would be gone. All of it was already gone the moment you walked into that boardroom, Sophia said gently. The question is whether you want to spend the rest of your life running, or whether you want to fight back. What would our new lives look like? Simple, quiet, effective. Harrison pulled out 3 new passports. Michael Chen, investment consultant from Seattle. Sophia Reyes, cybersecurity expert from Denver. And Elena Volkov, former prosecutor turned private investigator from Portland. You've already chosen our new identities. We've prepared for every contingency. Sophia opened her laptop, showing him a complex organizational chart. This is the criminal network we're fighting. It has tentacles in every major city, every important industry, every level of government. Traditional law enforcement can't touch it because it's too big, too connected, too careful. But 3 people operating outside the system could. 3 people with insider knowledge, federal resources, and nothing left to lose. Harrison's smile was predatory. They won't see us coming. As if summoned by their conversation, Richard's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We know where you are. Surrender now and we'll make it quick. They found the safe house, Sophia said, checking her own phone. Extraction in 5 minutes. Richard, Harrison said urgently, you need to decide now. Come with us and help us destroy them, or stay here and die as Richard Blackwood. Richard looked at the death certificate with his name on it, then at the passport labeled Michael Chen. In the distance, he could hear helicopters approaching. If I do this, he said slowly, if I become Michael Chen, what happens to justice? What happens to the rule of law? Sometimes, Sophia said, justice requires us to work outside the law. Sometimes the system is so corrupted that the only way to fix it is to tear it down from the inside. The helicopters were closer now, and Richard could see armed figures moving through the trees outside. Decision time, Harrison said, standing and grabbing his go-bag. Richard looked at his reflection in the window. Richard Blackwood, successful businessman, devoted husband, law-abiding citizen. All of it had been a lie, a carefully constructed facade that had just been stripped away. What the hell, he said, pocketing the Michael Chen passport. Richard Blackwood was getting boring anyway. 6 months later, the small cafe in Prague was unremarkable in every way, which made it perfect for the meeting. The man who had once been Richard Blackwood sat at a corner table, reading a newspaper and sipping coffee. His hair was darker now, his face subtly altered by minor plastic surgery, his bearing completely different. Across from him, a woman with short blonde hair and green eyes reviewed documents on her tablet. She had been Sofia Martinez once, but now she was Sophia Reyes, and she was very good at her new job. The Amsterdam operation is complete, she said quietly. 12 arrests, including 2 government officials. And the money trail? Frozen. 40 million in assets seized. Sophia's smile was satisfied. The network is starting to fracture. What about Catherine? Elena finished her assignment in Moscow last week. 3 more cells eliminated. Sophia's expression softened slightly. She asks about you in every report. Does she? She wants to know if you can ever forgive her. The man who had been Richard Blackwood was quiet for a moment. Tell her that Richard Blackwood might have struggled with forgiveness, but Michael Chen understands that sometimes love means making impossible choices. Sophia nodded. The network has lost 60% of its operational capacity. They're getting desperate. Desperate enough to make mistakes. Desperate enough to surface. Our sources indicate the leadership is planning a face-to-face meeting next month. First time in 5 years. Where? Monaco. During the yacht show. Maximum security. Maximum anonymity. Michael Chen smiled, an expression that would have been foreign to Richard Blackwood. Then I think it's time for the network to meet some new players. As he stood to leave, Sophia caught his arm. Michael, do you ever regret it? The choice we made? He considered the question seriously. Richard Blackwood lived a comfortable lie. Michael Chen lives a dangerous truth. He adjusted his jacket, revealing the subtle bulk of a concealed weapon. I've never felt more alive. Outside the cafe, the man who had once been a millionaire CEO melted into the Prague crowd, just another face in a city full of secrets. But he carried with him something that Richard Blackwood had never possessed, a purpose that transcended money, status, or comfort. The unthinkable had become reality. 3 people had died so that 3 others could be born. And in that death and rebirth, a criminal empire that had operated in the shadows for decades was finally facing its reckoning. The game was far from over. But for the first time since that rainy night in his Manhattan office, Michael Chen was playing to win. And the network was about to learn what happened when you made the mistake of threatening someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for.